This is ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage. Connect with us at accnation.net. Listen to our podcast and streaming radio. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite social media outlet. Now, here's Will and Jim.
Cal Golden Bears football. Welcome to this ACC Nation preview with special guest Jim McGill, writer and editor with the #1 independent Cal sports news source, Bear Insider. Thank you, Jim, for joining us and taking a little bit of time to talk some Cal football.
You're welcome. Good to talk to you guys again.
Yeah, it's been a year, and what an interesting year it's been. We're going to get into a little bit of the shenanigans, antics, and maybe just overall impression of what it's been like to be in the ACC for that first year. It's been entertaining from our perspective to have Cal as part of the ACC, especially some of the stuff that the alumni has pulled off, and supporters absolutely love it. And it seems like everybody that I've heard from or read all say the same thing. We're looking for more of the same this year. So maybe there's something that you have up your sleeve that you can share with us at some point here.
That plus a little more winning.
There we go. Well, that comes with time, and I think that there's some adjustments with the team when it comes down to coaching and structure and just a different perspective. And there were some exciting moments, certainly in the football schedule last season. And we're going to find out just how many transfer portal people there are, because it seems like everybody and their brother this season has a list about a mile long of players that are coming in. But let's start out with our thumbs up and thumbs down and the Will Waggle on the wins and losses on this schedule this season, and see what you think. Let's start out with our first game. It's an ESPN game. It's going to be one of the neat thing about football in the ACC now is that it goes all day. It's a 12-hour adventure. And this is Cal at Oregon State. It's on ESPN, 7:30 Pacific time. I will be giving Pacific time for these games specifically. So you folks on the East Coast, you figure it out for yourselves. I can do that. So what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Cal and Oregon State?
Thumbs up. Last year it was a massacre. I don't think it'll be a massacre this year, but I do expect Cal to win convincingly. I just don't think that Oregon State is in good position on either side of the line, offensive line, defensive line, and it's really tough when you're lagging in the trenches to beat a team that has some talent behind it. So they're at home. They've played Cal tough in Corvallis traditionally. But, they lost a lot of talent to the portal 2 years in a row. And, yeah, they brought in Malik Murphy, who's a pretty well-known name at quarterback. But he's got to have a line behind him. And I think from what I've heard, he didn't have that line in the spring and really struggled. And I don't know how much is going to change in the fall for them.
All right, our next game up is Texas Southern at Cal. That's going to be on the ACC NX network for those of you who are big into streaming. Thumbs up, thumbs down on this game?
Thumbs up. I mean, if Cal can't beat a team of Texas Southern's caliber, they're going to really struggle this year. They're not a high-caliber FCS team, and I think that's the only type of FCS team that could hang with an ACC team, to be honest.
Not a bad thing to start out with 2 wins in a row. That's always a positive. So now we get into a little bit more of a challenge. Minnesota is coming to Cal. That's another 7:30 Pacific game. ESPN will be carrying this game as well. This should be interesting and a challenge. Thumbs up, thumbs down on Minnesota visiting Berkeley.
Until I learn a little bit more about how this new Cal roster is going to come together, I'm going to have to go with a thumbs down on that one. The fact that they're in Berkeley helps the situation, but Minnesota is a pretty talented team, and it's going to be a legit test for Cal. If they're able to win that game and start out 3-0, that'll speak really highly to their chances for the season. But at this point, I'm not particularly confident about that game.
Okay. Next up is at San Diego State, and that will be on CBS. San Diego State has been a thorn in people's side in the past. Will they be this year for Cal?
We'll talk about a thorn in the side. They've beaten Cal a lot over the years, much more than Cal's beaten them. But they've been a better program in those years that they've beaten Cal, and Cal handled them pretty easily last year. And I just think that it's a sign of the times. They got hurt a lot in the portal in these last couple of seasons, and they're just not as talented as Cal. Cal hasn't really won down in San Diego in decades, but unless San Diego State really acclimates really quickly with their new additions, or Cal plays really poorly, I don't see Cal losing that game. From what I understand, San Diego State did better in the portal this year than they did last year, but I still do expect Cal to come up with a double-digit win down in San Diego.
Not a bad way to start here. We're talking about those two early games. That's two pretty good, solid wins there, I would think. The Minnesota game, as you indicate, that's going to be more of a challenge. But, again, you have a team flying across country and playing at Berkeley, so that may be somewhat of an advantage. We'll see. And San Diego State, maybe that third win for the season at this point, which bodes well, hopefully, for a shot at a bowl game. Next up, the ACC starts. Cal is going to have to travel to Boston College. The thumbs up or thumbs down on this game?
I like a thumbs up on that one. If Cal comes together the way I think they can with this new group, and they're kind of established a quarterback, they're going to be trying to figure that out early in the season. I like their chances. I see Boston College as sort of a middling ACC team, and if they aren't able to pull off a road win against a middling ACC team, I think they're going to struggle for the season. So I'm going to call that one a win.
Okay. Going in the right direction. Duke at Cal. That is also to the advantage of Cal in this particular instance. What do you think there?
That's one of those TBD ones. Where's the hand? Can't find the right hand placement here. That one, I'm not confident enough to call a win or a loss on that one. I'm leaning a little bit towards a win with it being at home. Duke had a really good year last year. I don't think they were tested too much, so I don't know how much that one-loss record is indicative of their total talent, but I'll call that one a toss-up right now.
All right, a Will Waggle. Okay.
Yeah.
So after that, it's a break until the 17th of October, and you get to take a look at Bill Belichick and his girlfriend somewhere in the stands, I hope. North Carolina at Cal, 7:30. And for those of you who are on the East Coast, it will be a 10:30 game, ESPN. So this should be an interesting game. We're not really 100% sure what's going on in Chapel Hill, but we're talking about Darth Hoodie here, so maybe bringing the dark forces to bear.
I like Cal in that one. Their recent history with North Carolina under Wilcox, they're 2-0. They beat them in Chapel Hill, and they beat them in Berkeley. And I'm not convinced that they're going to be for real. And I know Belichick was a legend in the NFL, but there's not a strong history of NFL coaches, especially older ones, coming back and really doing the same thing at the collegiate level. I mean, I look at Bill Walsh, who was just a incredible legend with the Niners, and Stanford was okay with him. I'm sure Belichick will bring some things to the program that will be beneficial for them, but I'm not convinced about about them really versus any of the tougher competition this year. I'm going to take Cal on that one, especially with it being a night game with them traveling to the West Coast.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting perspective there. And, you know, you may be right on top of what's going to happen. On October 24th, that's a Friday night game. The one before that was a Friday night game as well. Cal is going to be in Blacksburg at Virginia Tech. This is a 4:30 Pacific time game, 7:30 Eastern, so it is catering more to the East Coast crowd. And this one, ESPN is going to be covering that game. What do you think about this one?
I think Tech has pretty solid talent, and they usually do. And I know they're tough at home, and they get really hyped for those night games. And um, Enter Sandman blasting through the speakers, getting everybody pumped up. I'm really looking forward to it. But to be fair, to not be a homer, I'll give it a Cal loss on that one. I don't think it's out of the question that they could pull off the win, but I'll give Tech the better chance on that one.
One of the few people who actually admits to trying hard not to be a homer.
Yeah. Mhm.
November 1st, a Saturday game. It's Virginia traveling to Berkeley to take on the Golden Bears. What do you think of this matchup?
I definitely like Cal on that one. I think Cal's the more talented program. I need to see a little bit more about what Virginia has this year, but from everything I've seen, I like Cal. It's a bad indicator if they don't win that game.
Now they turn around and then travel to Louisville the next week.
I don't like Cal's chances in that game. I think that's probably their biggest chance at a loss in the season. I think Louisville's a talented team, and it's not the easiest thing to travel east. And I doubt there'll be humidity that late in the year. But if they get any weather in their favor, that could factor the Cardinals too. But uh, I just think I just think Louisville would be a really big test if Cal could pull that off. It would be a real feather in their cap. Louisville.
Okay. A break right after that, and then they come back and play at Stanford. This is always a fun matchup. What do you think is going to happen there?
Cal Stanford could go any way, any year, but I like how Cal matches up against Stanford now. I just think they have more talent. They've kind of got their number. They've won 4 of the last 5, and the only one that Stanford won was when Cal's special teams were atrocious and they had 2 kicks blocked. Even if they only had 1 kick blocked, they would have won. But 2 kicks blocked was the nail in the coffin. But definitely Cal on that one.
Okay. And the final game of the season is going to be SMU traveling to Cal. That could be a real challenge. If SMU is anything like they were last year, which a lot of people are anticipating that they will be.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of drop off with SMU, and they clobbered Cal last year. Granted they were in a bad quarterback situation last year, and it was on the road, but still, there seemed to be too much of a talent gap for Cal to overcome that fast. So I'm going to give that one a loss.
Okay. Still looks like the team is probably going to be bowl bound. It's pretty close to
Yeah,
that.
I would
So,
say if Cal has less than 8 wins, there's going to be a lot of dissatisfaction in Berkeley, and if they can't do it with this type of a schedule, when are they going to do it? They brought in a lot of coaching acumen on the offensive side of the ball, and the offensive side of the ball has been their big problem for quite a while, and their offensive line in particular has been an issue. And I
mhm.
really like the way they've addressed that on 2 fronts. They brought in a new coach, Famika Anai, who is the son of kind of a legendary offensive line coach, Robert Anai, and he's had instant results in his young career. He was at Texas Commerce, a little tiny program. They brought him into New Mexico last year. New Mexico was terrible in 2023. Their offensive line was terrible. They lost most of their offensive line, brought back 2 guys who never saw the field last year. He brought in a bunch of no-name guys, and they gave up the least sacks in the country, and they were number 4 in rushing in the country in one year right away. And he brought in a bunch of big guys this year. This is the biggest offensive line Cal has ever had, and they're legit too deep in the line, and I've never seen that before. I don't know how dominating they're going to be, but they're going to at least be capable. So that combined with Ryan Harson coming in an offensive coordinator, I think can really pay big dividends for them. When he was an offensive coordinator at Boise, they went 61-5 and averaged 42 points a game. They won 2 Fiesta Bowls in 5 years. So that speaks to his acumen. I know Boise's always a good team, but he was at a different level when he was coordinator there. So I have high hopes for him in Berkeley. I think that can really revamp the offense.
So the thing I like about doing this, and I probably could speak for Will about this as well, is that uh, we touch base with everybody in the ACC,
Yeah.
and for us, this gives us uh, kind of an interesting advantage. You being there working with Cal specifically are seeing what's going on there. But people who are on the East Coast or, Notre Dame or Florida State or Miami or wherever, they're not hearing most of the time, they're not hearing
Nothing.
this
Hearing
stuff.
nothing.
It's like, you talk the one argument I always have about Wake Forest is like, where's the news? I
Yeah,
mean,
nobody
who's
hears about Wake.
talking about these teams? And that's the thing we like doing here is that when we get you to come on and other people to come on who are actually spending time looking at these teams and you have that inside information, then we start getting a really clear picture of what a team has the potential to do. Um, that's why I'm not a big not a big proponent of early, way too early top 25s or top 25s in general until about the third week because you don't really know, especially with the transfer portal, what you've got. So you're sort of giving us this inside look at what Cal. People are thinking, well, Cal was last year. They're not thinking about what's changed this year. The people who have come in on the transfer portal and what you just were talking about, having too deep. And these are the types of things that people don't know. And now they do. Well, if they're listening and watching closely. So that's why I always encourage people who are listening and watching that they should be subscribing to your site and following you and doing the same with all these other folks so that they're really getting the big picture. Because we're certainly not going to be able to get all of it as well. But let's get into a little more detail about what the offense and the defense is doing here. Will's going to take that and run with the ball.
Sure.
Yeah, Jim, good to chat with you. A lot to learn about this team this year because there's so much new, especially offensively. So let's start at the top. You mentioned the changeover to offensive coordinator Brian Harsin is in. What are we going to see differently schematically from this year last season?
Carson is a power-oriented coordinator. He really wants to establish the run, loosen up the defense for the pass. He's not going to be a pass-first guy, but it's a pretty diverse passing game. You see a lot of unique things, a lot of jet sweeps, and a lot of action that Cal fans aren't necessarily used to seeing. They had a trick play the other night that, if it worked in a game, would absolutely make the Memorial Stadium go bonkers. So a little more creativity, I think, but they really want to establish the run, and they brought in three running backs to take the place of the portal transfer guys. Brandon High, Kendrick Raphael, and LJ Johnson. And all three of those guys seem to have some juice. They hit the hole really quickly, which is something we're not used to seeing because Jaden Ott used to dance around a lot before he made forward progress. These guys seem to have good quickness off the ball, and they're exploding through the holes right away. So I like what I see in them. And the quarterbacks are brand new, a totally different situation. They had Fernando Mendoza as a starter for the last year and a half, and now they brought in Ohio State's primary backup, Devin Brown, who's a redshirt junior, and they brought in a 5-star quarterback, Jaron Kiawe Sagapula-Tele, and he was actually committed to them. And there was a very controversial incident with a former Cal player that really kind of steered Sagapula-Tele to Oregon, who was his second choice. So he flipped on signing day, went to Oregon. The player that kind of created a little bit of tension transferred out. So all of a sudden the coast was clear, and when he wasn't feeling Oregon, he flipped right back to Cal after the Rose Bowl and was there for spring ball. So those guys are going to fight it out. I think the freshman has more talent, but it's pretty difficult for a true freshman to come in and start right away. So the thought is that Devin Brown might have a little bit of a leg up, even though he wasn't ever a starter at Ohio State. He did he did see enough game time to not be too wet behind the ears. So that'll be a really interesting storyline to see how those guys battle it out.
Yeah, and this has been well, and I'm glad you said you pronounced that quarterback's name. I've been sitting here trying to pronounce it, and I Sagapulatelli, yes.
Yeah,
And a couple of the running backs you mentioned, you should be familiar with some of the ACC people, Kendrick Raphael.
right.
But on the quarterbacks, you kind of made it seem like Brown might be the slight lean. If the first game was today, would he probably start, or would both could potentially play?
Well, we asked Harson about that this last week, and he'd like to stick with one quarterback, but I don't think anybody really believes that unless whoever starts out is clearly on his game, that we're only going to see one quarterback the first game. So my guess would be Brown starting, and if he falters, um, that Sagapulotele would come in at some point. But Harson will play his cards close to the vest a little bit too. This is the first fall camp where we're basically not allowed to watch. So I would be giving you a little bit more of an informed opinion, but I'm going off of spring because I saw all of spring practice and from what I've understand how things have developed since then. But so that's my guess. Brown to start. Sagapulotele will get his chance. I think he's too talented to not see the field this year.
Yeah, I feel like that's been the case at about every school now. They're just really trying to clamp down on what the media sees at practice, really trying to cover up what they might be doing going into the season. But receiver is a position that's kind of gotten a big overhaul.
Yeah,
Tron Grizel's back, but then I've got like five different players out of the transfer portal for Cal at
yeah.
receiver. Who are some of the other names we need to know?
Top of the list would be Jacob DeJesus. He's from UNLV, and he tore up Cal in their bowl game this last year, so they got a firsthand audition. He tore him up both as a receiver and as a kick returner. He's pretty elite back there. Um, Super quick. They used him in a lot of different ways in the spring. So he's sort of a jack of all trade weapon. I like Coron Adams. He's a really speedy little receiver from South Dakota. He led the nation in receiving average. I think it was like close to 30 yards a catch. It was insane. And he's looked good on the field so far this fall from everything that I hear. Mark Hamper is a transfer from Wisconsin. He played at Idaho last year and had a really productive year as a true freshman. He brings some size and position receiving ability. Um, Probably Keon Grays will have a chance to start. He was a transfer from Ohio State the previous season, but he was injured a lot of last year, so he didn't see much time in the field. Um, Desmond James is a transfer from Arkansas that really didn't play until the bowl game, and then he had a long TD catch in the bowl game that he totally outran the defense in. He'll get his shot. Trevor Rogers is a young, speedy receiver that also runs track for Cal, sprints and long jumps. So those are kind of the names to keep an eye on. A lot of speed in that group.
You mentioned the offensive line earlier. That almost got we got a pretty massive overhaul. I think six different transfers in, but only a couple starters back. What's been going to be the key for this revamp line?
Well, it looks like it's going to be a blend of returners and new portal guys. As for right now, um, three guys that are returning have the potential to start. Sioape Vadakani is a 2-year starter at right guard. He was the strongest guy on the team the last 2 years. I don't know if that's changed with these new guys that came in, but he's kind of a bull. But he's not guaranteed a starting spot. He's getting pushed. Braden Miller is a transfer from Michigan State. He was injured last year, so he didn't really get a true shot to show what he could do. But he's been in college football for 3 years now. He's a redshirt junior. He's looking like he's going to be pretty close to locked in as a right tackle starter. Left tackle is an interesting one. Nick Morrow is a guy that's a converted tight end out of high school that he was too light until this year. This new strength and conditioning coach has really gotten these guys right. They've really added strength and power and the type of functional strength that serves their positions well. And Nick Morrow is a really big guy, 6'7", 310. Now that he's put on the right weight, he's really agile, having been a former tight end. Usually those guys have more athleticism than your typical tackle. He's the guy that's leading to start at left tackle right now, but he's going to be pushed by portal transfer Leon Bell. He's another big guy. And Luwan Owens is another portal guy that could also slot in there at left tackle too. They like Tyson Ruffins, transfer from Reno. He was a Stanford commit that ended up flipping to Cal late in the signing period and signing with them. He's pretty versatile. He can play center or guard, but I like him to start at guard. Jordan Moko is a guy that's played at Texas A&M, and I think he was at Tennessee Chattanooga most recently. He had a really good spring. So Ruffins and Moko, I think, will fight it out to start at guard. And at center, there's another interesting battle too. Davian Harley, I think he came from Florida Atlantic, came in late in the late signing period, but he is looking like a really good shot to start at center. But Lamar Robinson, another transfer that could play multiple positions, will probably fight it out with him at the center position. But that's the nice thing. Like I said earlier, they've got depth, and the fact that virtually none of these guys are guaranteed to start at their positions is a good sign for their offensive depth. And they're all big guys too.
All right, let's switch over to defense. As you talked about the strength of this defense, they were it's a louder game, but there is a bit of an overhaul defensively here. Let's start in the back end because this is where there's the biggest amount of turnover in the secondary.
Yeah.
By my count, I've got about 5, 6, 7, no 6 transfers in. What do we need to know about this secondaries? Will likely be the key to this Cal season.
They lost a lot of talent, 3 draft picks out of the backfield. So that's going to be some big shoes to fill. I would say Brent Austin is looking like one of the best cover corners they have on the team. He's a transfer from one of the Florida schools. I think it was UCF. He's a good man and seems pretty physical, man coverage or zone. Hezekiah Masses is another transfer guy that started in the spring, and he looks like he's got a pretty good shot at starting too. He's going to get pushed by Jayon Young, who is a pretty high level prep recruit coming in. He played in the Polynesian Bowl and looked really, really strong there. He had a really good spring. He came in as an early entry guy. So those, I think, would be the favorites on the corner position. Throw in Kamani Hudson too. He's a redshirt freshman who is very athletic, and I wouldn't be surprised if he forced his way into the starting lineup at some point during the season too. At safety, Isaiah Crosby is a senior. He's a JC transfer. He was a JC All-American. He seems to be pretty locked in at one spot. I like Tristan Dunn. He's a transfer from University of Washington. He's a tall safety, 6'4", like 210 or so. Hits well, pretty rangy, covers well. Aiden Manitai is an interesting one. He's another early entry prep guy that was also in the Polynesian Bowl. And there's talk that he may be playing better than any of the safeties right now. So he may force his way into the starting lineup early too. Drew Polidor is another portal guy that could potentially work his way in and start, or Jordan Sanford, Texas Tech transfer. So they have some pretty good depth there. It's just it's a little bit unproven. Some of these guys played in their prior programs as starters, but they might be moving up a level from FCS. They may be part-time starters trying to transition to full-time starters. So that's the biggest question mark on defense, the defensive backfield. I think they've got some talent there, but we don't know how it's all going to come together yet.
Linebackers led by Kate Uluwave, who had a monster season in only 9 games, had 71 tackles. But this is a kid who I think he's probably going to get some All ACC love by the end of the season. But outside of that, there's a couple question marks. What do we need to know about linebacker?
Yeah, Ulave would have been All ACC if he didn't miss several games to injury. He was Defensive Player of the Year for the Pac-12 the year before. He's legit. He's a future NFL guy. They brought in Harrison Taggart, a big, strong, high motor middle linebacker from BYU. He would be one of the favorites to start opposite Uluave, but the two other guys in contention would be Boom Jock, who was a 100 tackle inside linebacker at Colorado State, and Luke Farrelly, who's a redshirt freshman. His name keeps coming up with his teammates and coaches. So just a super aggressive, smart player that hits and plays fast. Those would be the guys on the inside. On the outside, Ryan McCulloch, he has a chance to be an elite player. He's a real difference maker. He missed a few games with injuries last year, and they've been making sure to not overwork him. They didn't play him in the scrimmage last night, but he's a guy that will compete for all ACC honors. And they've got some other guys that are going to be pushing to start. TJ Bush was a highly sought after rush backer from one of the smaller schools in the South. It was Liberty. I'm trying to remember. He had a lot of good offers. Cal had to really fight to bring him in. Yeah, he's looked good so far. Chris Victor is another FCS transfer guy that has a lot of juice, and Serene Tenkara was another FCS transfer from the previous year. Those guys look like they can provide them some pass rush skills on the outside. Those are probably the guys that I think you can look to the most. Jaden Wayne is a physical specimen that transferred from University of Washington that hasn't quite lived up to his billing, so he'll be in the mix too. We'll see how he competes as fall goes on.
And again, one of the unique things about this defense is they line up a little bit in a two-man front, but obviously, they're sickly, but I feel like with their additions in the portal, this feels like a really strong unit.
Yeah, I think the defensive line will be real solid, and then that starts up the middle with Aiden Keanaaina. He was, I think, a third team All ACC player, but he put up some really good numbers for a defensive tackle. I think he had about 50 tackles and a lot of quarterback pressures and a couple of sacks. He's legit. He's strong. He's a leader on the defensive line. And behind him, he's got Stanley McKenzie and a late transfer from Houston. I think it's Houston State, a small school, Zay Smith. Really interesting guy. He's really only 6'1" or so, but he's 310. He's got 6'8" wingspan, which is very unusual. So he keeps the linemen off him, and he's very twitchy. He's very quick. He's going to be disruptive up the middle too. On the edge, TJ Bowlers is probably the most productive guy. He transferred from Wisconsin the year before and had a solid year last year. I look for big things for him this year. Derek Wilkins, Michael Anthony Aquara on the outside, opposite side, are guys that are probably the most likely to see the most reps. Wilkins came in as a 4-star prep that had a lot of good offers, but he had some injury issues early. I think he's healthy now, and I think he's responded well to the strength and conditioning program. So those are the guys I think he can look towards on the defensive front. I think the front seven will be real solid. The question will be, how fast can the defensive backfield get up to par?
Jim, as I indicated, I was going to ask you about how long the list of portal people that you have coming in this season. Do you have any idea number wise how many people have been pulled in off the transfer portal?
Well, I don't know specifically for portal. I do know they have about 52 new guys between the prep and portal players. So that's over half the scholarship roster right there. It's a big change, but the good thing is the dominant majority were there for spring, so that helps a lot.
This sounds like a familiar story so far.
Get used to it.
Yeah, there's only been one team that we've run into that did not have this, which I thought was very unusual. But
is that Clemson?
Duke, actually.
Duke.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, surprisingly. So let me get into the Calgorithm a little bit, because it's been a year now, and I know, we obviously hear it because we're on I'm on the East Coast. Will's out in the middle of the country. You're on the West Coast. So we're hearing different perspectives from people in their reaction to, oh, well, I thought this was the Atlantic Coast Conference. Maybe it should be the All Coast Conference, and how people are reacting to the addition of Cal and Stanford and SMU. Um, but let's go with Cal. What's the overall gut impression of the first year being in the ACC?
Well, it's really a case of unfulfilled expectations. We've heard over and over again that they lost 4 games by 9 points. It just tells you how close they were. I mean, a loss is a loss, no matter how close it is. But there's no way they shouldn't have won at least 8 games last year. I mean, start with a 25-point lead and late in the third quarter to Miami. How do you lose that game? I know Miami was solid, but you know, I do they have enough to get them over the hump now? I think the special sauce with this team getting over the hump is this new strength and conditioning staff. It's just really run in a night and day different way than they've seen recently, especially the last couple of years under the previous S&C coach. They've got them really focused. They've gotten them a lot stronger. I mean, you may have seen the Twitter blow up of Desmond James, the receiver transfer from Arkansas, the transformation with him. It's not like they all turned into the Incredible Hulk or anything, but functionally they're stronger. They stretch them in a way that I think is going to keep them healthier. You just look at them before the game. Typically, stretching is stretching. You just see the same old stuff all the time. These guys are different. They're torquing their joints. They're doing things that I think will really help keep them healthy, and it's paid dividends. We've seen very few injuries in the spring and so far this fall. And when you combine keeping them healthy with keeping them, getting them stronger and giving them sort of that mental edge, that toughness, I think that bodes well. I think they have the ingredients to turn the tide and make those close games close wins instead of close losses, or maybe not close. Maybe add another touchdown to the mix and
Yeah, day and
maybe
night.
get out of the danger zone some more often.
Yeah. I highly recommend inversion yoga. Not that I would do it, but if they want to stretch, go with the inversion yoga. That will
We
stretch
could
them
all
out.
use a little inversion.
Yes, I know I could. If I did it right now, um, next week I will be in a cast. I'll be in a hospital bed or something.
Filmed in traction.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be something severe. The 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 attitude, the billboards and stuff like that. Can we expect that again this season, or do
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. In fact, some new billboards debuted by the Oakland Coliseum and the airport this week, and um, it was a green and gold A's plane flying away and a silver and black Raiders plane flying away. And it's Oski, the mascot, waving and saying, "We're still here." So trying to bring some abandoned Bay Area sports fans over to Cal's way. And I think they're going to have that same edginess with the rest of the conference too. The Calgorithm, you know, Cal's a smart school, and that lends itself to wit. And those guys are going to keep it up. They just hopefully they'll just have some ammunition to back it up. I mean, they started off with some good play that gave them some ammunition out of the gate, especially beating Auburn on the road. That was really fun.
How
Um,
sweet. How sweet that was.
Thing of
yeah, and
beauty.
the political tweaking stuff I think is pretty funny. No matter where you are on the political side, the tweaking was just classic. They're just playing into the crazy Berkeley ethos with the way that they're taunting the other programs, and I just think it's hilarious. I don't know how you can't laugh at some of the stuff they post.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I look forward to seeing
Yeah.
more. It just it's entertaining, and it just puts something back into football that I think has been missing for a long time, and
Yeah.
it's good fun. So,
Well, the
uh,
thing is, they don't take themselves seriously, and
yeah,
that's that's a life lesson right there. You can't take yourself too seriously.
Man, every time I get up in the morning and look in the mirror, that's exactly what I say to myself. How can you take yourself seriously? That'll do it every time. Will, any
Yeah.
final questions for Jim?
Yeah, a couple real quick. One thing we have yet to discuss is Ron Rivera being the general manager of Cal football. So take us inside what how things have gone or what things are like with him as GM now.
Having Ron has been a really big help. First of all, you just start with the fact that he's a Cal legend. He was a senior when I was a freshman, and he was a man amongst boys out there. Um, he won Cal a game against Texas A&M. They had no business winning with a safety in one of the last plays of the game, a first game of the year, his senior year. He loves Cal. His wife Stephanie loves Cal. She was a basketball player at Cal. They've been hardcore Cal supporters throughout his playing career, his coaching career. So it's really cool to have him back here. But what he does, it's so necessary. The Cal administrative bureaucracy has been a thorn in the side of the football program forever. We've had chancellors that have, they've liked Cal sports, but they haven't really been big proponents. They haven't really stood up to the academic side and made the case for why a strong football program creates a stronger university. They've got a chancellor in there now, Rich Lyons, who really believes that. He was an undergrad when Rivera was an undergrad. They were there at the same time. So Ron works with Chancellor Lyons in a great way. He's a buffer. Wilcox doesn't have to deal with so many of the annoyances that he's had to deal with over the years. And Rivera brings, an NFL mentality, a professional mentality to the program. And, players listen when a guy's done. A guy's won a Super Bowl in leadership. That speaks volumes. And he's a very relational guy too. A lot of the general manager types, the players see them and they kind of go the other direction. It's different with him. He loves the players and they seem to really be taking to him too.
So last question for me. Depending on where you read, some people think Justin Wilcox might be on a little bit of a hot seat. Realistically, how warm is this seat?
Well, this is the first year that I think it is warm. There was too much of a buyout prior to this year. It's somewhat manageable after the season. If you bring in what could be an elite general manager, you bring in a very competent offensive staff to completely revamp the offense, bring in a ton of guys in the portal. You have what has to be one of the easiest schedules in the country. If you can't win 8 games, if you just squeak into a bowl with a 6-6 record, or maybe slightly better with a 7-5 record with some unsatisfying wins, it's got to be a hot seat. And I think he'd have to admit that too. I mean, nobody likes to have their job threatened, but I know he hates losing as much or more than any of the fans do. And I think it's do or die right now.
Interesting. Good perspective there too on how important it is to have the folks who are running the university also being supportive of the athletic program. I think that, quite frankly, I've always looked at the education side, the athletic side, complementing one another. And if you can look at it that way and run it that way, both sides will ultimately benefit. And it sounds like you've got yourself some good people there. Ron Rivera's a great guy that is going to help make that happen. So much success to Cal. Jim McGill with Bear Insider has been our special guest to give us a little bit of a preview and some thoughts on Cal football. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you joining us and talking some football this evening.
Thanks, guys. It's been good to catch up again.
ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage with Will and Jim. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on our podcast, streaming radio, and YouTube. Connect with us on Blue Sky, Reddit, Instagram, Threads, Mastodon, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn.